Hi, I'm Landscaper, and this is the Wannabe Composer series.
I am the sound. I am the sound.
Back to the tea. I love a cup of tea, haven't you? I do. Anyway, you might not, so whatever. Who cares? I've been having a little bit of writer's block recently. It happens to us all. I had a couple of weeks off, we were on holiday, doing various things, blah, 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 blah. Come back, and actually I'm out of that kind of flow state of mind. I've also got a cold, which means my head's not properly in it. Sleep deprived, the works, right? Everything's going on. So, oh, okay, I'm just, I haven't quite got it falling out of my fingers right now. So what do? So I've done a couple of little videos about how I use certain synths that kind of lay out stuff for you, and you can then use some Splice. And that made me think. So I've done a few long chills, like an hour long or half an hour long tracks that are effectively like trying to pretend like I'm a DJ. I'm rubbish at DJing, but trying to pretend a lot. So I'll make lots of little tracks and then try and blend them into each other and then just let them run for like an hour. And they take a little while to do, and I do them purely on Splice, right? I mean, I might just chuck a little piano solo in here or a little bit of strings or something just to add an element if I feel like it. But predominantly, I'm literally looking for samples off Splice, and I'm just going to try and make tracks out of them. So I thought, you know what, let's do that today. I'm not fully functional. Seems like a good idea. So here we go. So I'm using the VSX headphones. I love them, brilliant. And I'm using a room called Yellow Matter Studios. Lots of different rooms here. I've been over it in a few other videos. If I'm writing stuff that's more orchestral based, I tend to use Spitfire. If you want to check what your stuff sounds like in a club, etc., etc. So there's some really good stuff in here. You can use, SUVs, want to hear what it sounds like in the car. One of my favorites in here, I have mentioned it before, but a little boombox, right? You want to hear what it sounds like on a little boombox? I don't even know if they make those things anymore. Either which way. We're going for Yellow Matter Studios today, and that will be my ear rolls. Splice, here we go. Pick a BPM, and I think at the moment, I'm feeling a little up-tempo, I need something that's going to get me driving. So I'm going to go a little higher. I'm going to go 134. 134 seem good. Sometimes I like to push it all the way to 140 if I really want kind of high energy. I'm going to start with 134 and we'll see where we go. So I've got Splice open here, and what I tend to start with is some beats. So let's check out some house beats. Most popular, I tend to steer away from most popular just because, a lot of people will use those, more likely to have been heard or whatever. Now with drums, you kind of argue, does it really matter? Who cares? Who's going to know? But you know what? We're going to do that anyway. Sometimes I would just grab whatever. Don't care what speed it is because I like the sound. And then I'll ramp it up. But for me at the moment, I am going to go for very close. I'm going to put this to 140. I've done 1 to 140, haven't I? Put that to 140, and I'm going to put this to 125. Let's see what we get. You know what we get? We get nothing because I haven't turned my audio on. Right, here we go. Wannabe composer, doesn't really know what he's doing. Sort of blags it along the way. I'll be releasing that next week. Probably the best tune I've ever written. Right. Well, it wasn't the drums I was expecting. You know what? Sometimes shouldn't look a gift horse, should you? Oh, should I bring that in? I don't know. Oh, that's it. That's a great start. Let's go with that. Right, who have we got? Tech House Tops. Through my file browser. Right, I've got rather a lot of stuff I've downloaded from Splice over the years. Tech House Tops. Okay, we're off. Gonna check what key we're in. E minor. I'm gonna do a tiny bit of mixing. Sonable EQ. Run it, let the AI sort of think out what it thinks would be a good EQ, and then adjust it. Now for the moment, I don't really know what's going to sit in around this, so I don't want to spend too much time messing about. But this is definitely not going to be the low end, right? So I don't really want... I'm going to cut out any of that bottom because I'm going to bring a kick in at some point, and the kick is going to span from probably around kind of this mark, so around 300 down at least. with a bit of top stuff. So that'll probably do for now. That will hold that. Possibly once I've done a little drum arrangement and I'm happy with the big chunk of tracks and the loop, then I'll probably put that into a group channel track and I'll mix that for this one. What I've got to be a little bit careful of, because this is going to be like an hour-long track, I'm going to put lots of different effects on lots of different channels and lots of different tracks. The old power can get a little bit zapped. So the performance can struggle a bit. Got to be a little bit careful, hence do the group effects as best I can. Maybe a few EQs here and there. So let's go find ourselves a kick. So I found another nice little drum loop called Left Coast House. Sounds quite good. Let's bring it in, sort the volume out, give it a bit of colour. Not bad. I think that's going to run quite nicely. Sort our EQ out. Drop 300. I usually put a notch in at about 120, but I can see they've already done it. So it's got a little bit of a notch there, right? So I don't really need to worry about that. I've put a little bit on the 300 there. Let's see how the two of them sit together. Pretty good. That'll do for an initial drum basis. I've created a group track for those two drums. Now I'm going to add a little bit of final EQ to try and get the two of them to sit nicely together. Okay, EQ sounds good. Pop a little silver bullet on. A little bit of compression. I'm going to drop the gain on the whole track till it gets in between -12 and -6. I definitely think we'll do some filter sweeps and that kind of stuff, but for now we're just going to get some stuff in, see what works. So the next thing on my list would be a bass. I'm kind of going to leave this open, right? So house bass would probably make most sense, but I'm just going to put bass in, right? And then I'm going to pop the key in, which I'm pretty sure was E minor, and then set it to random here. I will put the BPM in because that will help. I mean, I love that. That's great. Roll it off. I don't think I'm going to want the whole sample, but we'll roll it off anyway. Tasty. Let's set the volume. Set the EQ. Now with the bass, I want to find the EQ of the kick. So we've got bass EQ here, top, drums, bottom. So we're looking for where the kick kind of peaks. So the kick peaks at around 57, and that's where we know the kick is. So what I want to then do is put a shrinky dip in there. That way the kick has a chance to punch through the frequency ranges and the bass isn't muffling it too much. We will, as always, a little 300 dip for the bass. I love Splice, honestly. I mean, on the days when you ain't feeling creative, you know, musically speaking, that was piano fingers, not some weird thing. It was a bit weird with it, but whatever. So good. Okay, so I'm starting to see that my true peak is now entering around 6, so I need to drop the gain just a little on both of these. Let's go on a nice groove to it. We'll do a bit more mixing later on. Colour up my bass. What a bass. I think we'll bring in some vocal touches now. I will stick with house vocals in my search for this. Okay, male or female, let's just see what happens, but I do want to check the key, obviously.
I am the sound.
Check the volume.
I am the sound.
Little EQ.
I am the sound. I am the sound.
I like that. What does it need now? I don't really know. So maybe a synth. Let's try that. So what I've just heard, I feel like it could be the next track that this mixes into. So I'm going to take this. It's called Classic House. Got those original titles as me, isn't they? That's such a lovely bass. Right, so we're going to time stretch this bad boy, and I think that will be my mixing track. Let's look for some other synths. So the only thing we're going through Splice is that sometimes you hear so many things, you think, oh, that'd be good, that'd be good, that'd be good. A little bit like, you know, when you're in a supermarket, you see so many things and you just can't make a decision, there's too much choice. So you've got to be a little bit careful of that. It's like stick to the plan. Okay, so I'm dropping this in there, see if it works. Again, I'm dropping a lot of EQs on here, but what I would do is once I've got this initial 3-minute track done, I'll bounce everything in place if I'm kind of happy with it or happy enough with it. Then I can delete all of these plugins, right? And then that should free up some performance for next time. Get my EQ sorted. I just got to remember where the bass dip was. Okay, so we'll drop out the 57 again for the kick. Don't really want anything spilling into the sub as well because that bass is too nice to clutter up. So I'm going to drop that all out. And I'm going to give it a little more. But this has got a high mid-range.
I am the sound.
What I think I want to do with this is start to create a bit of width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot this over to the left. I'm going to pop a little bit of crazy reverb on it. Valhalla Simma, and let's see what we get. Take the volume right down.
I am the sound.
Certain frequencies aren't quite working in that synth, so I'm just going to think about it for a second. I'm not 100% sure about that synth, but I'm going to leave it in there for now. Let's keep looking. So after a little while, if I don't find anything, the risk is I lose that kind of flow state of like, yeah, come on, let's get something else in. So I've not found any house synths I really like, so I'm going to track that out. I'm going to try something else. Okay, so I've been messing about with different sounds for a little while now, and I'm not really finding anything that's grabbing me. So I'm going to start to lay and do a bit of arrangement because that will keep me going. Right, so I know I don't want any of those at the beginning. And because it's like an hour-long track, right, I am going to drag out portions rather than kind of a quick. So I'm going to copy across, use range selector, right-click, range select. If you've got your quantize, adapt to zoom, it works dependent on how close and small you are. You see the little lines here. I'll grab the next one, and it's much easier to just copy chunks across, and then we'll get rid. Right, we're not going to drop the bass in yet. We might drop the vocal in, but I don't think so. I think we'll bring the drums in there. Then we're going to probably hold the bass back and hold that effect back. Now I'm going to kind of want the mainstay of the beat to probably run for around about 2.5 minutes, I think. So I'm going to drag that lot out to there. That gives me 2.5 minutes. I've muted this off so it shouldn't come in. I might want to drag this track out further, we'll see. So I'm thinking we'll hold off on the bass because that's really juicy when that drops in. We'll do a little filter to these drums. So let's get a little filter sweep on here. And we'll start with a moderate one. Now what I realise I've done this the wrong way around. I've got to undo that. So start with a little filter on these drums, I think. Read right. What I'm looking for initially is at what point do you start to hear it? Okay, so 4. So I can undo that, can rewrite from the start, set this to 4 as my starting block, and then I can write thereafter. So not perfect necessarily, but what you can do is that you come in and you can change this automation. So we know we want the 4. We'll have a quick listen. Right, I think I'm going to need the vocal at the very front as well to give a little signifier.
I am the sound.
What I think I might also do is pop a reverb on here so that I can wash it in, sort of reverse wash. I'll put a reverb on, probably something massive, so really big, and we'll rewrite the mix down first.
I am the sound. I am the sound.
That sounded quite good. I think I might leave it at that actually, because the decay sounded fine. And then I'm going to need some kind of riser to cover that intro as well. So let's go and have a look for some risers. Now I know I've got a bunch of risers already within my sounds library, so I'm going to go find some of those. Almost the right length, almost. Set the volume. Okay, so I think we're going to want something else that comes in, maybe a crash. It's all the volume.
I am the sound. I am the sound.
So now what I'm feeling is that this secondary drum here is coming in. Let's move it up to the other drums. The secondary drum is not fat enough now, so I'm just going to solo it off and try and get a bit more punch out of it. Okay, I think we'll put a little cut here as well, a little foot sweep on the end to make it interesting. And then what we'll do is we'll have the reverb pop up like that.
I am the sound.
Okay, and here's where we need something to happen. So, I mean, we can start with the bass and see what happens.
I am the sound.
So I think I needed some form of intro because it feels a little bit like the key changes and the bass comes in suddenly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut an end off of the bass, the last quarter. I'm going to drag it over here. I'm going to time stretch it out. I'm then going to reverse it. And then I'm going to fade it right in. And then I'm going to do a load of little chops. I've done chops all the way to the first half. From the halfway mark, I'm going to do this. Mute every other one. This may not work, but we're doing it anyway. I'm going to highlight it all, then I'm going to audio, bounce selection, replace the original. I'm going to fade it right in and see what happens. Now I feel this bass needs a little bit more volume. So I'm going to tinker with the EQ just for a little bit.
I am the sound.
And just check the level of that bass. I'm just going to raise it up slowly until I think it's hit the right point.
I am the sound. I am the sound.
Okay, that'll do for now. Let's keep trying to find some other bits to bring in, I think. What I might do as well, actually, because I like the vocals, I'm going to duplicate the vocal track. Sack off all of these that I don't want. I'm going to put some weird effects on this particular one. Let's see what we get. Nectar. Special effects.
I am the sound.
Okay, I like that little effect. Let's keep trying to find stuff. Well, it's a real juxtaposition here, but I've just found like a really nice synth I think could work.
I am the sound.
I'm going to try and balance this synth off with the bass. So I'm going to want this to pop in here at this crash, but I need some form of lead up to it. So I'm going to do the same kind of trick again. I'm going to time stretch this last note, fade it in slightly, then I'm going to run a filter on the top of that as well.
I am the sound.
Just realised I've done it the wrong length. So let's glue that back together. I obviously hadn't time stretched it the right way. Try and time stretch that out.
I am the sound.
I think we'll have the reverb coming back down from that synth. I think we'll play a little bit with some of the filter in here, I think, just to give a bit of movement.
I am the sound.
Okay, and at this point, what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to fade down. So I'm going to fade down my bass to start with. So what I've done is selected all of those, selected those parts. I'm going to bounce them down in place. Audio bounce selection, place. I'm going to fade that bass right the way out. I'm going to use that again, the little riser there and the splash, as a point where I'm going to start to bring in the next element. And what I'll do is I'm going to filter sweep this right down and possibly put a volume fade on it as well on those keys, although they may keep going, we'll find out. We're going to have a crash there, so those guys are going to drop out. I think what we'll do is we will do a filter on the end of that drum, and what we're going to do is ramp the reverb right the way up and give it a tail on those drums. And then these drums, again, I think what we'll do is we'll bounce the selection, fade those down, and then we'll work our way into something else. I mean, what a beautiful transition that is, right? Okay, so I'll put a load of effects on the kind of master out for this little section, if you like. And now my performance bar is starting to go a bit crazy. What I can do is bounce this one down, mute all the parts, turn off all the effects, and that should free up a bit of space for me.
I am the sound. 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 I am the sound.